Happy Whooper Wednesday, everyone. You know what time it is. Quickly, here's my Twitter and my Instagram. That way, if there was anything interesting in this window that I may have not been able to see, you can at least tag me in it and it could be in the review. Anyways, we'll start this video off with Asian qualifiers as they kick off this month. The first round is pretty simple. You get 20 Asian nations from the bottom of the barrel, put them through a two-legged playoff tie, and the winner advances to the second round. I don't even mean that as an insult, by the way. This is literally the 20 worst ranked Asian nations in the world. So more than likely, most of the teams to advance out of these groups will become the whipping boys in the second round. However, there is a certain charm that I love about these types of matches, so without further ado, let's get into these matchups. Oh, almost forgot, I'm nearly 10,000 away from 200k, and I told you guys if we hit 200k before the end of the year, I'd give you San Marino episode 2. You know what to do. So first we have Afghanistan versus Mongolia. Afghanistan has never qualified for the World Cup, and they also haven't played at home since 2013 due to the Afghan crisis, which the US definitely didn't have anything to do with. They did, however, win the SAFF Championship, which consists of South Asian nations. That was back in 2013, and it was pretty impressive considering the team were banned from playing football during the Taliban regime between 1984 and 2002. Not to mention, there wasn't even a league until 2012. Afghanistan's all-time leading scorer is 32-year-old midfielder Faisal Shayeste, and he still actively plays. Mongolia has also never qualified for the World Cup. They've not even come close, but they've made steps in the right direction, as in 2022 qualifiers, Mongolia finally made it past the first round. Most internationals play their club football at FC Ulaanbaatar. Last year, Ulaanbaatar beat a team called Lions 12-0 in the Mongolian Premier League. Lions that season conceded 156 goals in 24 games. Outside of the national team though, there's a diehard Manchester United fan by the name of Ochivani Batbold who is currently cycling from Mongolia to Manchester. He hopes to arrive in Manchester sometime this December. Next we have a battle between two South Asian nations, the Maldives and Bangladesh. Despite never qualifying for a World Cup, the Maldives have a pretty rich history in the SAFF Cup, winning in 2008 and 2018. However, it doesn't seem like football in the country is going in the right direction because their last two performances saw them crash out in the groups. Currently, there's two forwards the nation can call upon. Ali Fasir and Nais Hassan have a combined 23 goals between them for the national team. Oh, by the way, there's a stadium in the Maldives called Pele Stadium, and the club that plays there has a Jabulani for their badge. Okay, for the rest of this video, just assume that the team hasn't qualified unless I say otherwise. Between the 80s and the 2000s, Bengali football was at its best. 2 runners-up finishes and 1 title in 2003 in the SAFF Championship. However, since 2011, the team has fallen off a cliff and things aren't looking any better. Bengali national team fans are very passionate, but not only just for Bangladesh. Since 1986, Argentina's national team has shaped the way Bengalis look at the sport, and despite literally no ties whatsoever, the country is filled with Albi Celeste superfans.
Okay, so I'm starting to second guess myself here. I don't know if I'm supposed to say Bangladeshi or Bengali. I actually have no idea, so if you guys could just let me know in the comments, thanks.
The relationship actually goes both ways as well. Argentines have been backing Bangladesh's cricket team as of recent. The third matchup is Southeast Asian representative Singapore versus US territory Guam. Singapore's best period came during the late 90s to early 2010s, where they had 3 AFF championships. AFF championships are like the SAFF except with Southeast Asian nations. One player to look out for is forward Ilhan Fandi, son of the legendary Singaporean top scorer Fandi Ahmad. Also, shout out the goal difference on YouTube. His granddad is Kwan Kim Song, another legend in Singaporean football. Guam, on the other hand, yeah, they exist. Jokes aside, they're a tiny bit better than most people think. In World Cup 2018 qualifiers, they managed to beat India 2-1. And here's a quick population comparison between the two countries. Guam's all-time top scorer is 39-year-old Jason Cunliffe, who plays for the Bank of Guam. I'm not kidding. Cunliffe has scored the majority of his goals against island teams, but funnily enough, he did score against Singapore in 2015. That all said, Guam is the second worst Asian nation going into this round. Next, there's Yemen versus Sri Lanka. Yemen haven't played at home since 2012 due to a civil war which has practically destroyed all football infrastructure in the country. Because of this, the domestic league has played just 2 seasons in the last 7 years, and most clubs are begging for donations. The situation got so bad that national team players and staff had to escape by boat during the 2018 World Cup qualifying campaign. But at one point in history, Yemen found itself on the rise after reunification and nearly qualified for the final round of Asian World Cup qualifiers in 2002. Nicknamed the Golden Army, Sri Lanka's best period came during the late late 90s when they won their first and only SAFF championship. Fast forward to now, however, they are the worst ranked Asian nation in the world. However, it should be mentioned that Sri Lanka's squad is filled to the brim with dual nationals, a lot of which have just received their first call-up. I don't know how this will play out, but I am interested. The fifth matchup is between Myanmar and Macau, and this match has already happened before in June, I believe, when Myanmar won 1-0. But the last 3 years have truly been a roller coaster for Myanmar's football team. Back in 2020, multiple key players refused to represent the nation, citing the military coup against the government. This resulted in some awful performances throughout 2021 and 2022, including a 10-0 loss to Japan and an 8-0 loss to Kyrgyzstan. However, 2023 has seen the return of Myanmar stars, and the national team were finally able to grab their first win in over 2 years. Macau has never made it past the first round. Not even once. Their best chance came in World Cup 2022 qualifiers when they had a 1-0 advantage against Sri Lanka after the first leg, but the FA forfeited due to safety issues. Most of the national team play their club football for either Monte Carlo, Benfica de Macau, or Chao Pak Kei, whose logo looks more like a gas station.
So while I was editing this video, I came across these Chao Pak Kei branded fake Jordans.
The first round also sees a rematch between Cambodia and Pakistan. In 2022 World Cup qualifiers, it was Cambodia that prevailed 4-1 on aggregate. They hope to replicate a similar result with youngster Siang Chantia, who plays in the Qatari 2nd Division. Cambodia's history is mostly dry except for a 4th place finish in the 1972 Asian Cup when they were called the Khmer Republic. Much like Cambodia, Pakistan's achievements go all the way back to the mid-20th century. Throughout the early 60s to 70s, Pakistan was actually good enough to beat some of Asia's superpowers, and that era was spearheaded by Pakistani Pele himself, Abdul Ghaffur Majna. Nowadays though, Pakistan would be lucky enough to beat Gibraltar. Right now they're on a 12-game losing streak and haven't won in the last 5 years. We also have Taiwan versus Timor-Leste. Taiwan were very successful during Asian football's infancy. 2 gold medals in the Asian Games and a podium finish in the 1960 Asian Cup. They are far from that now, however, manager Gary White has been leading the nation in the right direction. His first tenure in 2017 saw Taiwan reach its highest ever FIFA ranking. He left in 2018 but is now back after some shambolic managers in the past. One player to look out for is Swedish-born Taiwanese player Miguel Sandberg. He represented the national team at youth level in the 2018 U19 Asian Cup, where he was the youngest in the squad. Timor-Leste were only recognized by FIFA in 2005 and didn't win a match until 2012 when they beat Cambodia. God knows how legit that win was though, because in 2016, the federation was charged for using forged and falsified documents to play ineligible footballers. A year later, they were actually banned from qualifying for the 2023 Asian Cup.
Leave me alone, please.
Hiding in the shadows. Hiding from who you truly are.
Now there's always an odd one out in this round of qualifiers, and I think this time around it's Indonesia. They play Brunei, and the most recent meeting between the two saw Indonesia win 7-0. The national team is only getting better, mind you. Along with promising players like Elkan Baggott and the social media player, there's a lot of excitement surrounding 19-year-old Marcelino Ferdinand, who plays in the Belgian 2nd Division. Under the guidance of former South Korean manager Shin Tae-yong, Indonesia's future looks illuminating. So maybe now they'll finally win an AFF championship. Brunei has never made it past the first round, and I can assure you it's definitely not happening this year. That being said, there has been massive improvements being made to the national team. Massive in the eyes of Bruneians. After a 26-year drought, the Wasps qualified for the most recent AFF championship. Sure, they would lose every group stage game by 5 goals, but hey, progress. Also, for you FNG fans, this country has Faik Bokia, the richest footballer in the world. The 9th matchup we have is Hong Kong versus Bhutan. During Asia's early days, Hong Kong was one of the top teams. They finished 3rd in the inaugural Asian Cup and then 4th in the 1964 edition. However, they would not qualify for another Asian Cup until this year. And understandably so, Hong Kong's most famous victory was a 2-1 upset win against China in 1986 World Cup qualifying. Bhutan was once considered consistently the worst team based on FIFA ranking. However, in their first attempt at World Cup qualifiers in 2015, they shocked Sri Lanka to rise up to 163rd in the world. Lastly, we have Nepal versus Laos. Throughout its history, Nepalese football has been held back due to a lack of facilities. However, recently, it appears the national team might be on a bit of a rise. Since 2011, Nepal has managed 3 semi-final finishes and 1 runners-up in the SAFF championship. One player behind the successes is Nepal's most capped player, goalkeeper Kiran Chemchong. He plays his football in India, as does 25-year-old Anyan Bista, who is third in Nepal's all-time leading scorers. Laos' all-time leading scorer is Sukhofon Vongching-kam, and he's active as well. The 31-year-old has 15 goals for his national team.
He's also 5'1". Look at this picture. This guy towers over him.
Watch out for 23-year-old midfielder Michael Vang as well. He's the first ever Hmong professional footballer in the US. When it comes to history, yeah, I mean, Laos doesn't really have that much. Except for maybe some match-fixing scandals, but that's only because the federation doesn't pay its players enough. It's only been one match day, and CONMEBOL has already delivered the goods. Multiple red cards, poor officiating, and curses being put upon players. God, I love this confederation. Here's the table before we go into the next window. There's only been 2 games played, so don't get too excited. Brazil and Argentina were off to expected starts, as they are the only 2 teams with 6 out of 6 points so far. Brazil defeated Bolivia and then grabbed a late winner against Peru. And in this upcoming window, Seleção plays Venezuela at home and then visit Uruguay for a gritty battle with Bielsa. Argentina broke the deadlock against Ecuador through the GOAT, Lionel Messi of course, and then its brothers did him proud against Bolivia. Argentina now set their eyes on a home match against Paraguay to begin the window. After, they'll play Peru in Lima. Colombia sit third after earning a win and a draw. They're the only other nation to be unbeaten so far. Compared to their campaign last year, they've looked better, but a draw with Chile is pretty sketchy. Nonetheless, we'll get to see if Los Cafeteros are the real deal because they start with a home match against Uruguay and then end the window with the match against Ecuador away. Already some difficult matches, but it gets tougher because Colombia will be without 3/4 of their starting backline. Starting midfielder Jefferson Lerma will also be out due to injury. The last remaining teams to have won already are Uruguay and Venezuela. Marcelo Bielsa's young Uruguayans took easy care of Chile, but suffered a setback thanks to classic CONMEBOL officiating. And they go into this window with some concerns. Jose Maria Jimenez is still suspended due to his protests after the game against Ghana. Defender Matias Vinha will be out for the first game of the window due to yellow card accumulation. And Uruguay need to be extra careful in their first game because 4 other starters could miss the second game of the window if any are booked.
Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! SpongeBob, careful! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob!
Marcelo Bielsa's got a massive challenge ahead because with all these issues, Uruguay is about to go through hell in this window. They play Colombia away and then Brazil at home. Venezuela is not making their people depressed. For now. After a narrow loss to their bitter rivals, the Golden Generation snatched victory at the death against Paraguay. La Vinotinto will hope to continue their decent form into this window, but they play Brazil to start. However, things get a little easier with a home match versus Chile. 3 teams share 1 point each: Paraguay, Peru, and Chile. Paraguay's attack squandered numerous chances in games they should have won, and after a loss to Venezuela, head coach Barros Schelotto was sacked. The Paraguayan Federation then selected Libertad manager Daniel Garnero as the new man. Paraguay's next 2 fixtures are a mixed bag. They first play the world champions Argentina away, which they will probably lose, but things are leveled out with a home game against the sea-level merchants. Another team to play Argentina in October is Peru. However, the Peruvians will start their window with an away game in Chile. Pedro Gallese played a huge role last window, and his quick reactions and reflexes will be called upon once again this month. Chile started with a loss, but managed to hold Colombia to a draw to end September. Their upcoming window gives them a chance to hop up on the board as they play Peru at home and then Venezuela away. Both very winnable games. Ecuador, as you remember, started their campaign with -3 points, but they fared well in a pretty tough window and rebounded with a win against Uruguay to bounce back to 0. Going into this window, things get a little easier. Ecuador start with a match where their ops won't just be Bolivia, but also Hypoxia. Then they go back home to face Colombia in a battle to see whose flag is cooler. Finally, sitting at the bottom is Bolivia, who had the misfortune of playing both Argentina and Brazil to start out their campaign. And guess what, Bolivians? You now have the honor of playing arguably the 3rd best team in CONMEBOL: Ecuador.
You fucking kidding me?
But don't worry, things simmer down a little bit with the match in Paraguay to end off October. And so that is your World Cup qualifying preview for the month of October. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, you can tag me on Twitter or Instagram for any kind of news regarding any of these teams I can maybe include in the review. It just kind of helps with the videos, helps them, I don't know, be a little more detailed, stuff like that. Maybe there's something that's interesting, you know, who knows. But of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons, of course, including Janos Bara, Stin, Miliue009, Adnazir Makalongkom, Audipu, Alex Rod, Ulta, Anaya20, Araisan, Chris Damasceno, Daniel Ortiz, Francisco Hernandez, Hysteria, Joel Carvalho, Josh Budd, Marco Fujimoto, Miguel Munoz, My Man, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Sliderkit, Sniffers, Taco Okafan, Tana Permilia Celine Khan, Tamakis, Victor, A1KLCF, Chris Visconsi, Dominic Griffin, Louis, Joe Aparicio, Lucian von Croix, Michael Nista, Niche, Patrick Barley, Rowan Cookie, Sylvia Citrus. Subscribe to Tendetem, Unbroken Persona, and Valencia 14. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you want, follow my TikTok. You can follow it if you want. And of course, you can follow my semi-active Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.